Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Elad Persov, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar, Design for Security, the End-User Perspective. Today's session is especially significant for the Social Design Challenge participants, and I'm excited about the dynamic conversation we are about to have. Before we begin our discussion, I want to provide some context. The Engage2innovate project is a part of Horizon Europe initiative and conducted in collaboration with international partners, focuses on shifting the emphasis from technology alone to prioritizing human needs in security innovation. The webinar addresses how positioning the end users at the heart of the innovation process can lead to the design of more effective and impactful crime prevention strategies and solutions. We are here not just to share knowledge, but also to spark ideas that will empower the young designers participating in the challenge. The webinar is being recorded and will serve as a lasting resource for the design students participating in the challenge. It will allow them to revisit our insights and integrate them into their design process. Today's agenda is structured in two parts. We will start with a round of introduction. Each speaker will briefly introduce themselves, provide an overview of their organization, and give a quick insight of their unique perspective and expertise. After the introductions, we will transition to a one-hour discussion guided through a series of thought-provoking questions. This session is a two-way street. I would appreciate your participation in the discussion. So today we aim to foster a collaborative environment where your insights can directly influence the discussion on crime prevention. We will explore how human-centered approach can enhance our State Office of Criminal Investigation of Lower Saxony in Hanover. Her office fights and prevents crime while ensuring internal security, supports regional police, and facilitates information exchange with federal and state agencies. Second speaker is architect Julia Hall, head of design for security at the Greater Manchester Police, the territorial force responsible for law enforcement within the Greater Manchester in northern West England. Third speaker is Chaim Rafalowski. Chaim is a disaster relief coordinator at MADA, which is Israel's National Emergency Medical Service and Blood Services Organization. They're providing pre-hospital care, blood services, first aid training, and humanitarian aid. And myself, I'm Dr. Elad Persov. I'm the head of the Sustainable Development Hub at Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design in Jerusalem. Okay, so now without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Anka, to introduce herself and her organization. So thank you, and let's get started.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elad, for the nice introduction. Let's start. My name is Anke Schröder. I'm the head of the criminological research in the unit of research, prevention, and crime at the State Office for Criminal Investigation in Lower Saxony. The research unit at the LKA, so we called it in German, Landeskriminalamt, is a service unit for colleagues in the state police force, staffed by researchers and police officers who advise on criminological and methodological issues. In cooperation with the central units for prevention and youth affairs in the department, we examine comprehensively phenomena and forms of crime in regards to causes, prevention options, or repressive measures. I myself am an architectural sociologist and criminologist. After years of transdisciplinary research into urban security and the importance of public space, my task is now to put findings into practice and to anchor the need for practical actions in research. For this reason, I have agreed to step back from substantive research and leave the field to younger colleagues like Melanie, she's also here in the meeting, and take responsibility for coordinating and process-related tasks of internal issues and international research projects. This is not always easy, as you can imagine, but I believe that it takes experience from everyday research to successfully implement application-oriented research. As researchers in a practical-oriented organization like the police, we are always, I call it, in between. We seem too practical for poor science and too theoretical for practice, but we are a kind of translator. As a planner, also a planner, it has always been important to me to implement findings from research into practice and to deepen practical questions in research. International third-party research plays a very important role. Innovations can be developed here with a necessarily timeline. In urban security as well as in the police practice, this sounds like a luxury problem, but I think it is necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We will go now to Julia Hall, architect Julia Hall.
Okay, so I'm Julia Hall, and as has been mentioned, I work for Greater Manchester Police, one of the 43 forces across the UK. I'm a little bit different in terms of who I am within policing because I am a qualified architect. I bring those skills to my team, which is Design for Security and the Crime Prevention team. As an architect, I specialise within policing in designing out crime. So we apply the theory of crime prevention through environmental design into our designing out crime work. And we advise the 10 local authorities across Greater Manchester on what should or shouldn't be included in new developments. In terms of crime prevention, which is another team that I look after, we look at rising issues, base our solutions in criminology theory, and try and assist the police force in both preventing and reducing growing crime issues, which is what I've brought to show you today. I've kind of brought along a current issue that we have in Greater Manchester Police and that we are looking at. And at the moment, some of my team are considering something called drink spiking. Drink spiking in Manchester is a growing issue, but actually isn't a confirmed crime. We know that 1 in 9 women and 1 in 17 men in the UK have been a victim of drink spiking. We know that drink spiking isn't currently a crime, but we do know that drink spiking can lead to other crimes, including personal robbery or even sexual crimes. And we know that this problem is often missed or never reported. So the issue that we actually have is it's a bit of a hidden issue. We know that the issue occurs in the nighttime economy in Manchester, mainly across the city centre and within bars and restaurants, pubs and bars in the city centre. And we know that we see a spike in this issue in Freshers Week, which is when the students return to university. Can I have my next slide, please, Alad? Okay, so where do we know this happens? As I've mentioned, the city centre is predominantly where we see this issue. So across Greater Manchester, which is 10 local authority areas, we've got 2,265 licensed premises, and it's actually the greatest density of licensed premises selling alcohol in the UK in one local authority, one greater area. So we see a lot of issues with licensed premises. This is a map of the city centre looked at between 2022 and 23, and you can see a density there of mapping of drink spiking. What we also know is that there are 3 primary hotspot locations. So we tend to look at crime in terms of density and where it's happening the most. We know that this crime predominantly occurs between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. and most offences occur at the weekend. Next slide, please. We know a lot about the victim for those that have talked to us, and there have been some surveys. So an online provider, Lad Bible, and a campaign group, Stamp Out Spiking, have surveyed over 2,000 people. And what they discovered was that the victims predominantly female, that 1 in 10 British women have been a victim of drink spiking, that nearly half of Britons that have been affected by this drink spiking or know somebody that has been spiked are aged between 18 and 24. And we can break that statistic down a little bit further. And we know that 51% of those, nearly half of Britons between age 18 and 24, are females. 69% of the victims are from the LGBTQ community, and 70% of victims are aged between 18 and 24. I think I've told you that many times. It's the second biggest concern for those on a night out after being mugged, or we would maybe term that as personal robbery. And lastly, probably the biggest and most impactful statistic here is that 87% of victims did not report their crime to the police. Next slide, please. We don't know much about the offender, unfortunately, at the moment. There's lots of research going on currently, and I think we will begin to break this down a little bit more once we dig into this issue, this well, I'm going to call it a crime, even though I've just told you it isn't a crime or logged as a crime, but this crime type. And what we know at the moment is that there's 3 possible motivations of an offender why they drink spike. They're malicious, so they want to alter someone else's consciousness to more or less, it's more or less both means and end. They want to cause a person to become intoxicated by drugs, and that fulfills the desire of the perpetrator. They can be coercive. They sometimes have a long-range objective to foster addiction or substance abuse, and they're predatory. Drink spiking or drugging, it means, is a method to obtain another criminal act. Okay, left. And then, so lastly, just to summarize this current issue and kind of what we're looking at and why it's so important for us to think about the end user. We have a lack of reporting, so the issue is underreported by the victim. The age and demographic, which is often students, don't always trust the police, and the victim isn't always believed. So victim blaming and shame can often be quite prevalent within this type of crime. There's a lack of evidence with this type of crime. It's very difficult to know if the victim has been spiked by the time they do report or present to a medical facility. Often drug tests just aren't useful and don't show anything up. And lastly, it's very difficult to persuade someone to protect their drinks during a night out. Drinks are left unattended naturally, and the perception of risk is lowered when we drink alcohol. So the more alcohol we drink, the less we're concerned about risk. So in summary, we are facing an issue that people don't want to report, don't want to talk to the police, and often we don't know a lot about. So it's really important that we talk to the potential victims or victims of this crime to help us to help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for this interesting presentation. Now we'll go to a different kind of an end user, which is not from the police force, rather from first responders. Chaim, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. As I was presented, my name is Chaim. I'm the Disaster Management Coordinator of Magen David Adom in Israel, the Red Star of David. Magen David Adom, as mentioned by Elad, is the National Ambulance Service for the State of Israel, the EMS. We are the National Blood Bank and the National Society, which is part of the international movement of Red Cross and Red Crescent. And as an end user, we are a unique end user because Magen David Adom is 35,000 men and women. Out of the 35,000 men and women, we are only roughly 4,000 paid staff, and all the rest are volunteers. Our youngest volunteers are 15 years old. Our oldest volunteer at the moment is 91 years old. And we wish him many more years of active service to the community. Whatever system is designed for the use in Magen David Adom, we have to think about implementation among 35,000 people. Some of them, of course, are way more technological in their approach or style of living. Some of them are challenged with technology. I will give you a very good example that I use always when it comes to new devices or technologies. And a colleague who is a senior physician said, when I receive a new device, I send the salesman out and I try to figure out myself how this device works. If I can solve it within 15 minutes, I might consider the device. If not, the guy is out of the door, because when you are stressed in the middle of the night, you don't remember the manual, you don't remember the guidelines. You have to trust that something is user-friendly enough that you can figure out by yourself how to use it. So that's what we have in mind, that whatever new technologies, procedures that we are using in our business, and we are a highly technological organization, has to be on one hand user-friendly enough, and on the other hand it has to be robust enough physically, because our people tend to break things, and they have to be cyber safe enough, because you don't want to be treated by a device that someone is hacking and is altering the readings of your heart rate, for example, or your ECG and things like that. And so we're living in a world which is becoming more and more and more complicated with it's not just requirements. Often it is demands, regulatory demands that we have to meet. I just want to remind you that the moment we touch a patient, all the data associated to that patient is restricted, is protected by data protection laws. It's considered sensitive data. At the same time, we want to transmit it to our medical control for advice from a physician. We want to transmit it to the emergency department so they can see information. So challenges, a lot, and I'm here to talk about them. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chaim. So now we will go through a series of questions, and you're all welcome to respond at your free time, at your will. We will start with the first question, which is, why do you think it is critical to position end users at the center of the innovation process? We are quite familiar with the strategy in which end users are only considered when somebody wants them to use their product, as you just mentioned, Chaim, about the salesman that comes in. So what do you think would it make it into a critically shift to center the innovation around end users or human-centered aspects? Who wants to take that question first? Go ahead, Chaim, please.
I will start with an example. In a project, by the way, a good project, there was a new technology that was called tasking. And it was about the idea that in a large-scale situation, in a mass casualty, the medical incident commander will give the tasks to the teams that are arriving to the scene to help the casualties through an iPad, a tablet. And it was called tasking. And what happened in reality, and it was a simulation, it was not a real incident, was that everyone arrived to the scene, approached the medical incident commander. The guy was a very impressive medical incident commander. I wish I could duplicate him 100 times. The team arrived. He pointed out to the area where he wanted that team to go. gave few words about what they should do, hugged the team leader, and went to brief the next team. And the technological people were like crazy, because a wonderful technology that they developed, and it was really a very good technology, forgot something very simple: human nature. People, at least the generations we are working with today, maybe in 10, 20 years it will be different, tend to talk one to the other, especially when they are under stress. And if you don't take this into consideration, that there is a human nature, and you forget about it, you are designing a technology that works perfectly, is very well designed, but will never work because people don't use it. And it's the same as we are talking a lot about providing medical first responders, paramedics on the scene with AR glasses. And the AR glasses are failing over and over again, not because the AR technology is not good, but because it distracts the attention of the caregiver from the patient. And we are trained to use our senses. And if something is disrupting my capacity to look at the patient and assess it, because there are numbers running there and things like that, yes, I know pilots are using these kind of devices. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, not all our EMTs and paramedics are at the level of a fighter pilot trained for 2 or 3 years in the military. And this is why you need the end users' human perception about the technology they're going to use. Thank you.